Hi there, I'm Benj from Proton, the CRM built for distributors, and you're listening to In the Mind of a Distributor. This isn't your average podcast. Every time we hit record, our entire company is listening. That's because we believe the best way to build great software is to deeply understand the industry we serve. So each month, I sit down with the smartest minds in distribution to talk about what's working, what's not, and where the industry is headed. We didn't want to keep these insights to ourselves, so we're bringing them to you. Let's get into it. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Our guest today is Chuck Cohen, Managing Director of Benco Dental, affectionately known as my dad. So this is a very special episode for me. I can give a long introduction. He's in the NAW board. He's grown Benco from, how big was Benco when you started?
About 85 million in revenue, 85 to 100, something like that.
And now?
This year we should do over $1 billion.
So you've had an amazing run in distribution. And so my hope for today is that we can kind of talk through your journey and then talk about some of the challenges that you faced along the way. You grew Benco from 85 million, 100 million to $1 billion. Tell us how you did it. I mean, came into the business. What was the business like when you joined? How did you sort of end up leading the business? And what were some of the challenges along the way to get to $1 billion?
Well, first of all, just to restate the question just a little bit, I didn't do it. I mean, I was a leader in the organization as we made this transformation. And so I'm very proud of the success that we had. But certainly, if anybody knows anything about distribution, it's certainly anything but a one-man band, right? You need to have people picking orders and selling stuff and fixing stuff and the whole thing. So when I first joined the business out of college, we were doing about 85 million. And then when I took on a leadership role, it was probably at 100 million. And now we've 10x that probably in the last, I guess it's 25 to 30 years. A couple rules of thumb that we followed to create that success. And I think we have been a success. Number one is, and I think this is one of the lessons that I learned from my father, your grandfather, Benjamin, is, especially in a business like ours, you got to feed the golden goose. Otherwise, the golden goose doesn't lay any eggs. And what that always meant to me was, you've got to put the money back into the business. You've got to keep reinvesting. One of the challenges with distribution is that distribution eats assets. It eats money. It's very asset, at least short-term assets. It's very asset intensive to grow the business. So one of the mistakes that I think a lot of small distributors make, this is just my observation over the years, is they spend too much time worrying about the income statement and not enough time worrying about the balance sheet. One thing at Benco that we've always done is we've always been hyper-focused on the balance sheet as well as the income statement. How many assets do we need? What is the net worth? How do we manage our payables, our receivables? How do we make sure that there's enough cash to really grow this business so that we don't have to over-mortgage the future to grow today? So that's the first rule of thumb that I would share.
Did you learn that the hard way, or that was just Larry always sort of instinctively knew that, and you sort of growing up in the business, you saw that? Or was there a moment either when you were at Benco or before you joined Benco where we didn't manage the balance sheet correctly and got into trouble?
No, I would say we've never been in trouble over it. And in fact, I can tell you a few stories where it's gotten us out of trouble. Most importantly, the last one I can think of is during COVID. During COVID was a really time where you could really see, as you know, it's that old line from Warren Buffett, when the water goes out, you see who's wearing a bathing suit and who's not, right? During COVID, you could really see who managed their balance sheet well and who didn't over the years. So I would say I learned it from learning it in the business, my own observations, and actually watching some people kind of screw it up. And there's lots of ways to screw this up. Number one is you could take more money out of the business than the business actually has. You can over-mortgage the future. You can sell pieces of it. And then the people who buy pieces, you may make some money today, but then they take an outsized portion of the EBITDA going forward. So there's lots of ways to screw it up. I would say that we've never gotten in trouble over it. And so it's not like I had to get ourselves out of it, but there were times where, like during COVID, it became a real strength that we had a strong balance sheet. And I've seen other distributors through the years not manage to their balance sheet very well, and then they're the ones who get in trouble.
One of the things that strikes me about your journey and the family business journey over the last 90 years is just how like long-term oriented we've been about growing the business. And I'm curious where that comes from. And I've heard those stories, but I think it'd be helpful to share those stories around sort of being truly long-term oriented. I'm sure there were opportunities to take more money out of the business than you did. Why didn't you do that? A lot of operators do take money out or take advantage of short-term opportunities, sell the business.
We have a saying at Benco, we think in decades, not quarters, and I think that stood us very well over the years. And it really compares and contrasts us to our public company competitors who are perpetually trying to manage to the quarters. So we do think long term. And I really think that part of that is it's a family legacy, I would say. And certainly it's something that Rick and I have articulated going forward. But I think there's a fundamental piece that we have to start with, and that is, are you in the right business? So one of the things that we very quickly figured out at Benco is that we are fortunate to be in the dental distribution business, which is not the same as every other distribution business, right? There's lots of dynamics that I like about the dental distribution business that do fit a long-term mindset. Not every distribution business shares that same characteristic. There's lots of things you can distribute that go in and out of style, or they aren't here, they're here today but gone tomorrow, or there's a specific wrinkle in the market that makes it the right time to sell. It's easy to say we think in decades, not quarters, and it happens to be true with us. Equally important is making sure that you understand the dynamics of your market and that you are confident that the future of the market is bright. Because when it all comes right down to it, one of the things that Jeff Bezos gets right, and he gets a lot of things right, is it all starts with the customer. And if you like your customers and you're bullish on the future of your customers and the role that you as a distributor can play in the lives and businesses of your customers, it makes it a lot easier to be successful at thinking in decades, not quarters. If for whatever reason your customer base is changing quickly, or you can't adapt to it, or you don't have the scale to serve them, or whatever that looks like, then the short-term road might be the right one. And so it's not the right answer for every business. It happens to be that we are long-term thinkers in a market that is a long-term market. I don't see a time ever in the future when human beings in the United States of America won't be going to the dentist to get their teeth cleaned and fixed and made more beautiful. And that's one of the things that makes me excited about the business we're in.
It's interesting because many operators in the dental market over the last 30 years have not made that same choice. There's been a lot of consolidation. There are players that were big threats early on that are no longer around because they made different choices. So you make it sound easy, like it's just something that if you like your customers, you're good to go. But
well, I think we are unusual. We're certainly a survivor, and we've survived and thrived. The other thing that I would say is that, and this is a lesson that I learned very early on, I do think this is a lesson that is true of every distribution business. Distribution is a scale business. It's a pennies business, but you can only make real money if you get to a certain sort of scale. And because you can't get the efficiencies, you can't get the money out of the warehouses, you can't turn the inventory fast enough, all that kind of stuff. I do think that is one thing that a lot of distributors don't understand the nuance of, that we understood early on, especially in the dental business. And you're correct. There were a lot of small operators. In our business, when the small operators get in trouble, it's usually because they don't have enough scale to make the business work, to generate the cash, to really make any money, or somehow the owners multiply faster than the business can grow. So they've got more hands taking money out of the till than actually the business can support. But I do think that one rule of thumb that I would add to the ones that we've talked about, which are always manage the balance sheet, when it makes sense, think in decades, not quarters, and always focus on your customers first and where they're going and see if you can help them. The third one is that no matter what distribution business you're in, it's a scale business. You cannot make any kind of money. You cannot turn the assets if you're not operating on scale. So where we made some smart decisions, I think, over the last couple of decades, where our competitors, smaller competitors, have not, it's really reinvesting in the business, opening more distribution centers, and really building the business up till it gets scale. Scale has a bunch of benefits in our world. Number one is, as a national player, we can have better relationships with our vendors, and we have a little bit more clout in the market. Number two is, as our customers have consolidated, we can service customers outside of our core region as our customers have grown. And the third thing is, it's a pennies business, so the pennies only start adding up to dollars if you get enough pennies. And I just think that for two owners, and that's the way we're structured, you can only really make some serious money and have money to reinvest if you've got enough scale, you've got enough revenue at the top line to justify the investments you need to make.
It makes total sense that you need to get to scale. If you're not at scale, I think it can feel scary, and you've had moments where you've had to take real bets on the future of the business. How have you thought through in those moments, both the emotional side and the sort of business side of making those bets? I mean, it's sort of one of those things. You've been through the journey. You've got scale now. What were those sort of key moments to get to where you felt like, yeah, we have enough scale to really start making money in this business, where you had to make a bet on the future of the business? And sort of how have you thought through that?
It's some combination of a financial bet and a gut bet, almost always, because all the bets that we've made in the business, and I can give you a few of them if that's helpful, almost all of them require some sort of drop. Like, so in other words, you're going, and then you got to reinvest. It's a cycle, right? And then you go. But for a period of time, it's pretty scary because you've got to reinvest in the business. In our world, it looked like opening another distribution center, hiring a bunch of people, taking advantage of a market opportunity, like when a competitor screws up and they lose people and it's like, oh my God, I want to grab people and customer relationships. Sometimes it's just recognizing that there's something going on with your customers in the market and reinvesting in that. It's a little scary at the time, and almost always you could make an argument for or against. And we've had those arguments internally to Benco, right? There comes a fork in the road where you can either decide to double down, stay in the business, invest because the future looks very bright, but you know you're going to have to go down in order to go back up. Or you can come up with a reason that says, you know what? When we head down, we're going to keep going down and it's not going to come back up and we're not going in the right direction. Almost every big fork in the road that we've gotten to, we have made the decision to do the reinvestment and go forward. And every time it's worked because betting on yourself is generally a good thing as long as you're providing great value for your customers. But it's scary at the time.
You've seen over the last 30 years, technology come, consolidation come, all of which on some level, the message was, we're going to eat your lunch and we're going to put you out of business. Whether that was, Larry talks about the mail order catalog, whether that's Amazon, whether it's private equity coming in and consolidating. Just want to understand, as you've seen these sort of trends come and go, how you think about evolving the business, but in a measured way. So sort of taking on the learnings from these trends, but not overreacting to them. I'm just curious how you've thought about that.
Yeah, so the first answer, and it's a word you used a few sentences ago, but I want to pull it out again. I want to tease it out, is evolve. The frame that I use when sort of faced with those existential crises is distribution is not going away, but this is a kick in the butt to evolve the business to do something different. So if you looked at, the services that we provide today at Benco versus what we did a generation or two generations ago, we are basically a distribution business in name only. We're a different business. Like, we do things differently today, whether we leverage different tools or the services we provide. So number one is, when someone says distribution is going away, what I hear is, oh my God, this is another excuse to evolve as a distributor. So we're not going away. We have to be different. And I can talk a little bit about the evolution that I at least see today and going forward, because I think that's important. I don't think distribution is ever going away, but I think one thing we can see in the Amazon model, and by the way, I want to, where Steve Jobs said distribution is going away, and that was an existential crisis. I think on the other hand, Amazon going into the distribution business a generation or two ago, depending how many years it was an endorsement of distribution. What Jeff Bezos recognized is that he couldn't be an internet-only company and get to the scale that he needed. He wanted to be a distribution business as well. Now, I think on the one hand, distributors looked at that as a threat to them, and it should be. But on the other hand, it's an endorsement, right? It's like, oh my God, here's a really smart guy with a lot of money to spend. And what is he doing? He's putting up warehouses. Let's take that as an endorsement and say, you know what, aren't we all wonderful? We're distributors. Look at this internet guy who says, internet only is not a strong future for my business called Amazon.com, which is what it was at the time. So the first answer to your question, the first thing is a kick in the butt to evolve is what all of us need. Number two is what we see today is that Amazon doesn't make any money putting stuff in a box and sending it to a customer. Where they make money is in ancillary services that they can use based on the platform that they built as a distributor. I think that's really the next evolution of distribution. What we keep talking about at Benco is we may squeeze a few more pennies out of lowering our costs or getting to scale. But if any distributor is thinking that he or she, not any, but there are exceptions, but if most distributors are thinking they're going to continue to make the same amount of money as a strict distributor only, I think they're fooling themselves. Distributors today and going forward need to be in ancillary businesses that leverage the strengths that they have and their customer relationships to sell more things to the same customers. In our world, what we're looking at is selling solutions and services to the same customers who need us to get them the products they need to do the dentistry and run their practices. We're all going to get squeezed. It's going to be a commodity, and if it already isn't in the market you're in, to put stuff in a box, put a label on it, and send it out. Managing inventory, all those things. We'll make money at it, but never as much as we made a generation ago. The money is going to be in leveraging solutions and services and selling them to the same customers that we're selling the boxes of stuff to.
So a lot of distributors are thinking about what you just said. How do we add solutions and services? Has that been something you've built, bought, partnered?
Yes, and yes. And it really starts, I think, with understanding your customer better than anyone else does And at Benco, we have a rule, which is that everybody goes and co-travels, because the only way to really understand what's going on with your customers is, newsflash, go visit your customers. I don't believe in focus groups, although they're helpful sometimes. I don't believe in sitting around at an industry meeting. I believe in the old P&G model of watch your customers in their environment. P&G used to say that they invented toothpaste, or they made the toothpaste better by actually going to people and watching people in their homes use toothpaste. And it's a shocking thought, which is, oh my God, we're going to go visit our customers, see what's up with them. Hey, what's going on in your business? How can we be more helpful to you? There's no substitute for direct one-on-one interaction with a customer in their environment. I have never found that not to be helpful. And some of our best ideas at Benco come from actually getting out and seeing customers in their environment. There's no substitute for it. So when you're looking at what's made us successful, it really starts with getting out to the customers, seeing what's up with them, asking where their pain points are, not just with Benco, but their pain points in their business overall, and then figuring out if that's a space that we can play in and we can make a good decision on. To give you an example from our world, some of our competitors years ago had those conversations, and they decided to get in the practice management software business. Turned out to be very good decisions. Not a decision that we made at Benco, because at the moment that happened, we didn't have the scale. Today, we're getting into solutions, which is identifying pain points that our customers have and figuring out how we can offer a service or a solution to answer that pain point. Now, one lesson that we have learned, and we've tried it every which way, is you can do okay partnering with a vendor on that solution, but we have not had huge success because you can't control the level of service. So there's issues there, and you can't make enough money at it by the time everybody takes a little piece of the transaction. Where we've had our biggest successes is in acquiring or starting from greenfield the solutions providers that really make a difference for our clients.
I want to pivot a little bit to talk about sales leaders in general. I mean, you've seen obviously many evolutions of sales teams over time. I would love for you to talk a little bit more about maybe what the differences are between 50 million, 100 million, and $1 billion in terms of what you need from a sales leader to be successful, and how that's changed over time, and kind of what some of your learnings are in what makes a great sales leader.
As we've scaled up our business, I think one of the successes that we've had is we've scaled up the sales structure. The reason why I want to push back gently on that is, at Benco at least, the success we've had as we've grown hasn't been from hiring different sales leaders or sales leaders alone, although we do have excellent sales leaders at Benco. It's been more about how we rethink the structure of the sales department, and the structure that we had when the business was much smaller on the sales side does not work today. And one of the mistakes I do think that some distributor leaders make as businesses scale up is they do focus on getting a better sales leader, but they miss the nuance of having to scale up the sales process and the sales structure, the sales organization structure, in order to get the success. For example, as I scale up the business, the obvious answer should be, let me just pluck a sales leader from a business that's much larger than ours and stick them in our business, and when we're going to have a success. And the answer is sometimes, not without changing the sales process and the sales structure. Those two things are equally important. You got to have the right leaders, the right process, and the right org structure.
I would say from what we've seen, there's sort of two models that dominate from a sales process perspective. One is what Benco is in, which is more of a centralized command and control, trying to build sort of a centralized process. And the other is the total opposite extreme, a company like ABC Supply or Hajoka that are extremely decentralized, where, every branch has its own sales process. As you've grown the business, over time, you've had a choice between those two models. You made a choice. Why did you make that choice, and how have you thought about adding more process to this sort of centralized model?
Yes, and the choice that we've made is centralized. And
yes,
partly, I must admit, it's because I have OCD and I have a little bit of a control problem. So I don't want to say that it's all about the business, although I would say that it's the right decision for our business and our market. And I think it's more of the right decision for every distribution business. That's my observation, and I'm happy to tell you why I think that is. Not saying that there isn't success to be had from a decentralized sales process model, or what I would call more of a branch central model as opposed to a headquarter central model. I've seen lots of businesses in distribution transition from a branch central model to a central driven model. I can't think of one example of a company that's gone the other way. So I'm not saying you can't be successful with a distribution model that is, branch centralized, branch centric, but I've never seen anyone go from the model that we have to a branch centric model. So that leads me to believe that
branch centric tends to be code for we don't really have a sales process. Everyone kind of does whatever they want, which I think works in some distribution verticals that are very local. But as you've added more structure, have you had pushback from sales leaders that wanted to just do kind of their own thing? Did you have to deal with that or not really?
Absolutely. And we've had people leave over it at different times. And what we decided was that's a sacrifice we're willing to make. In addition, at least when you're small, the centralized model I think, can be more expensive and certainly is more difficult. The easy answer is to say, we're just going to open a branch and let them, hire the right leader, and they're going to be entrepreneurs and do whatever they want. I think over time, that is not the right model. Where it's really painful is when you're in this growth phase, and it's certainly the easy answer, which is, let them do what they want and just give them a P&L and give them a bonus based on the P&L, and everyone's their own
entrepreneur. Hit the number, we pay them. Great.
That's right. I just think over time, that's not the right model if you're going to grow to a certain size.
When did that happen for you?
We've always been centrally driven, and that really is, I will take responsibility for that. That's been my decision over the years. As we grew our business out, we've always been centrally driven. I've never walked away from that as a model because it fits my style, and I think it's the right long-term answer for the business. At different times, other people in the organization have pushed for more of a decentralized model, mostly because I'm not sure cheaper is the right word. It's faster. It's definitely faster. And it's easy because in the home office, we don't take any responsibility. We just, here's the product, here's the system, go do what you want. It's a very easy answer. I have never done that model, and I'm so glad we have not. I think we are a much stronger, better organization for it.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, I think you guys have implemented incredible sales process, especially around equipment. Can you talk about that particular area where you've implemented process and kind of what the impact has been?
Yeah, so about 30% of our business is the equipment business, capital goods, and that's what other people call them. But basically, if you think about a dentist's office, a chair or a light, something that's not an immediate consumable, but something that lasts a long time. So it's a long sales process, as you can imagine. We have small sales, but a lot of the sales are $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. For a dentist, that's a big sale, and for us, that's a big sale, and they scale up even from there. So nobody makes that kind of decision on one visit or one call or one close. So we've put a fair amount of sales process around it, and that's really one of the ways that we have beaten our competitors, and we've grown our market share to be higher than it is overall as a business. So our highest market share as a category is in equipment. I think that's a function of the sale, at least a function of the sales process. So for that segment, number one is we are huge believers in pipeline. Pipeline. For those who are not familiar, the sales pipeline is a way of breaking a complex sale into stages and making sure that you've got the right processes in place to take the potential sale from first stage customer says, oh my God, I think I should buy something, all the way to close, implementation, and you get paid. So there's a pipeline process. The second thing is we have specialists that we've created, our industry has created, to help the customer make these complex deals. And we've got one specialist for about 5 or 6 on average regular sales guys, more the guys and women who go in on a multi-week basis. We've got a specialist assigned specifically to them. They've got a different set of metrics. They've got a different management structure, but they're managed differently. So that's the second thing that we've done that's been successful. The third one is we went and rethought how the customer buying experience is, and we've developed some new tools for how the customer buys equipment that we think have really stood us very well in this market. And I think we've out-innovated the competition, starting with what is the customer's expectations. And then finally, we've put some innovative systems in place to actually deliver the value proposition on these complex sales, mostly around the service techs and how it gets installed and how we manage the projects, that I think have actually helped us as well. So there's no one answer here. From a sales process perspective, I would say we have a better buying experience for the customer. That's been key. We have specialists who are trained and managed differently to help close those sales. And we have a pipeline process that we are religious about and disciplined about to make sure that we are, taking customers from the first part of their journey when they go, oh my God. And sometimes it's our guy walking in and say, doctor, when was the last time you thought about buying equipment? Or what's the next piece of equipment you plan to add to your practice? That's our classic question. All the way from that moment where the customer may not have even realized, they didn't say I want to buy equipment. So before the customer knows the equipment, need equipment, all the way to we've finished the job and we get paid. That's a pipeline process, and we are religious about it. You cannot get a quotation out of our system unless the customer lead is in the pipeline.
we've seen that many distributors, the sales process starts at the quotation. Which is a huge miss, right? Because so much of what happens is before the quotation goes out. And I think the main gap there is not having the right tools in place, not having the right process in place, but also the hardest part is holding the team accountable to actually following the process. You know, when you initially rolled out the pipeline, how did you hold the team accountable to actually tracking the things before the quote? Because it's easy to just say, well, Chuck, I'm having all the right conversations. I just don't want to put it in the system to track it. When they quote, you'll see it, but don't worry, I'm having all the right conversations.
Well, it starts with the why that happens, and I firmly believe the why is because sales reps don't like to be held accountable, and when sales reps have all the leads in their own books, then they have a little more power than they would have if they put all those leads into the CRM system or into the pipeline. So let's get to the root cause of it. It's a sales management challenge. That said, what we've done is we said, here are the milestones. Here are the points where you cannot move forward in this process unless you have the lead in the pipeline. For example, our culture now is that 99% of the time, the only way one of our equipment specialists will take a lead from a territory representative is if it's in the pipeline, if it's in CRM. You cannot start the process until it's in CRM. It took us a little while to develop that culture. You cannot get a quotation out of the system unless it's in the pipeline. That was a big change in our operation because people were doing their own quotes on Excel and that. No, you can only do a quote on a lead that's in the pipeline, period. End of story. You cannot turn a quote into an invoice unless it's in the pipeline. So we put some requirements along the way to reinforce the behavior we were looking for, starting with you can't even get a lead acted on unless that lead has been entered in the pipeline at stage 0 or stage 1.
And the benefit is that you guys are growing that part of the business faster than the market.
Our market share in equipment is higher than our market share in consumables. That's not a coincidence.
Last question for you. One thing that we really value here at Proton is curiosity. And so I'm curious that, you know, after a long career in distribution, what is one thing that you still haven't figured out? You don't have a good answer for it, and you're still searching.
I hate to give the most popular answer, but I think it is true, is I'll give you the one that we're struggling with now, is really how is AI going to impact our business? And I think, by the way, a little commercial for Proton. I think Proton has been one of the key ways that we've implemented AI in the organization. When I think about AI, I think about 5 or 6 different use cases, right? There's a use case for the salespeople. There's a use case for internal. There's a use case for IT programmers. There's a whole bunch of different use cases, all of which are different, but they're all related on some level to AI or large learning models, right? LLMs. I am curious to see how distributors implement AI, and I am passionate that the ones who implement it the best are the ones who are going to win. The ones who are going to wait and see, or are going to put their head in the sand and not implement AI or be scared of it are the ones who are not going to win. I am an optimist about technology in general. I think technology is an enabler, especially in distribution, and I'm really excited and curious to see how distributors are going to leverage AI as a platform, as a tool to really grow their businesses and be more successful.
We agree. Well, thanks so much for doing this. That's it for this episode of In the Mind of a Distributor. If you like this conversation, leave a review. It helps more folks in distribution find the show. If you're thinking about a CRM for your business, head to proton.ai to see how Proton can help you grow faster. Or if you want to connect with me, you can add me, Benj Cohen, on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.